Hey guys, welcome back to Mo's Game Table. Today we're going to take a look inside Nevsky, Teutons and Rus in Collision, 1240 to 1242. This is a game designed by Volko Runke and published by GMT Games. This is the first in the Levy and Campaign series that Volko has started up, and we discussed this in our interview at the San Diego Historical Games Convention. He talked about this game, Nevsky, as well as future plans for the series. So let's take a look at the back of the box and see what this game's all about. With all Rus east of Vilman overrun by the Khan, Teutonic Crusaders see an opening against the wealthy Orthodox city-state, Lord Novgorod the Great. Can they gain its tributaries as converts and perhaps even seize its trade routes to Asia? How soon will the proud Novgorodans bow to the return of their prince to defend them once more? Nevsky, first volume in the Levy and Campaign series, unrolls the tapestry of war along the Baltic front of the 13th century, where town councils and papal legates loom larger than kings. Sleds and rivercraft, crossbows and trebuchets, wooden walls and stone will govern the fate of lords and set Russia's Baltic border for centuries to come. 6 scenarios ranging from 2 to 16 turns bring medieval military operations to life. Levy your lords and vassals, gather transport, hire specialists, and plan your campaign. Then be sure to reward your commanders with loot, coin, and victories, lest they suddenly turn for home to tend to their land, their obligation to you expired. And we have a list of the lords of the campaign for the Teutons and as well as for the Russians. You have a game map sample down here, and we'll give you the game contents. We have a 17 by 22 inch mounted map, 137 wooden pieces, 84 playing cards, 3 full color counter sheets, 13 cardboard lord and battle mats, 1 lord sticker sheet, 5 player aids, 2 screens, a rules booklet, background booklet, and 6 six-sided dice. It is rated as 5 on a complexity scale and 7 on the solitaire suitability scale. It is a point-to-point movement map for 1 to 2 players. The time is 40 days per turn, and there are 50 to 100 horse or 100 to 120 foot unit size. So let's take a look inside and see what you get. All right, we have our rule book, background book, sticker sheet, player aid cards, pair of screens, counter sheets, our map, the mats, and several decks of cards, some dice, and a big bag of wooden bits. So let's set up the map and take a closer look at the game. And here's a look at the matted map board that comes with the game. 2/3 of it encompass the map that you'll be battling on for the Teutonic area and the Rus area. The last third is the calendar, and it goes from 1240 to 1242. You have different seasons across the year. Summer for 2 turns, early winter for 2 turns, late winter for 2 turns, and then Rasputitsa for 2 turns. And at the bottom it'll tell you carts, boats, and ships for the summer. That's how you can transport your troops and supplies. Sleds only in winter, and boats and ships during the Rasputitsa. And Rasputitsa is basically an area or a time period where the roads are not very passable. That's why you have to use boats and ships, because you cannot move because the roads are too muddy. They're just not passable. You can't get troops, can't get supplies across, so you need to use the sea to do that. And back to the map itself, we have a beautifully done map by Chechu Nieto Sanchez. I hope I'm saying your name correctly. I apologize if I'm not. I just like to make sure that artists get their due. This is a beautifully done map that Chechu did a great job with, and definitely deserves getting notice for that. But you have the Teutonic area, the Rus area, and you have a legend, map legend up here that will tell you the different types of terrain on the map. Even though it's point to point, you're going to have different locations like castles, forts, trade routes, the bishopric, cities, and then you have the archbishopric here, towns, regions, and then waterways and trackways, how you can transport your troops and supplies across the map. Now we'll take a look at the player aid card that comes with the game. This is a fold out on the front. It gives you a list of the commands you can carry out, as well as the rule references here. It gives you the action, the requirements, and then the procedures to carry out each of these actions, and then the usable transports and the supply sources and routes. We talked about the usable transports, what you can use based on the season when we looked at the map. On the inside, we have our list of forces. It gives you the type of the piece that's used, strikes, protection, notes, and optional counter. You can use counters if you'd like. It does come with those, but who wants to use counters over really cool pieces? But with that said, there is a little bit of errata here. The men-at-arms, it is times half. It should actually be times 1. There is a sheet that came with the game that lists this, so you can see right here to match it up, it should be a times 1 for the men-at-arms melee strike. At the bottom, you have your strongholds, same thing. You have your type, your capacity, the icon, the walls, garrisons, and if conquered, your victory points and spoils. On the right-hand side here, we have our battle and storm procedures, how to do everything each per round, and then ending the battle or storm. And then on the back, we have our sequence of play, along with rules references for the levy and campaign portions. And we have 2 reference sheets, one for the Teuton lords and one for the Rus. You have your coat of arms, the name, the service, fealty, lordship, command, seats, troops, assets, vassals, and any notes. And on the back, you have what looks like basically an org chart, for lack of a better term. It starts with the papacy and then it breaks down here throughout all the different lords. And then same thing for the Russian lords. On the back, we have their org chart. Instead of the papacy, they start off with Lord Novgorod the Great, the city, and then the Vesh, which is the Council of Nobles, is what they answer to. Then we have the reference sheet for the Arts of War deck. There are 18 cards in that deck. There are 2 no event, no capability cards as well, which brings it out to 20. But this is a breakdown of all of the cards that you have in that deck for the Russians. And on the backhand side, there is the same for the Teutons. The game also comes with 2 player screens that you can use if you'd like to add some fog of war to your game. They don't have any information in them, but they do have beautiful art, as you can see by looking inside of them. And again, like I said, this is not required, but if you'd like to add a little bit of fog of war and use some bluffing, you can easily add these in your game. Now, each side has a pair of decks. The first is the Arts of War, the other is the Command deck. This is the Arts of War deck, and this gives you an event or a capability at the bottom. And as you can see, each one of them is definitely unique. So you're not going to have the same thing twice necessarily. You may have some similar things, but it looks like there's going to be fairly unique items in here to deal with. Then you have your command deck, and inside the command deck you have 3 command cards for each lord and 3 pass cards total. What's going to happen is, as you build your campaign plan each turn, you're going to be using these cards based on how many lords are mustered for the coming campaign. And whichever campaign or lords you don't have, you're just going to fill it out with pass cards so you have a fuller deck. Now we'll take a look at the counter sheets that come with the game. Anybody who's played a coin game is going to look at these and see, wow, I've seen these before. Very familiar, and that's for sure. You're going to have a lot of admin counters that you're going to use, but also some units that you can use instead of using the wood bits. But hey, like I said before, why wouldn't you want to use the wood bits? But the option is there in case you'd like to use the counters, which is nice. And the art on these is fantastic, so they will definitely work if you prefer these over the wood bits. And each lord in the game comes with their own mat. These are nice, thick, sturdy mats. It gives you a breakdown of all the stats for that lord, as well as places for knights, light horse, men at arms, routed units, and then you have your assets and vassals down here for transport, provisions, and then your militia that you can keep track of during the game. And just like we had the lord mat, we also have the battle mat. Same nice, thick mat, and you're going to have a place for your left, right, and center for your forces, as well as reserves down here for the defender, and then the same on the opposite side for the attacker. So easy way to keep track of your battles. And we'll take a look at the wood bits that come with the game. As you can see, they're nice chunky wood bits, and each of them signifies a different unit. We'll start off here from left to right. On the left-hand side, you have the silver unit, which is the knights. The black or steel unit are sergeants. The brown is light horse. The yellow here, or buff as it's called in the rulebook, is the Asiatic horse. Then you have men at arms, the flat rectangle. The brown rectangle is militia, and then the tan rectangle is serfs. So those are the types of units that you have in the game. And we'll take a look inside the rulebook. It is a 24-page rulebook. The rules themselves go to page 20, but from 20 to 24 is a combination of scenarios and the key terms index. Inside the rules starts off with the introduction, general course of play, the components, the map and how to read the different sections of the map, your lords, service markers, the lord mats, which we looked at already, and how to read all the items on them, the ratings. Then you get into the forces, which we've also taken a look at, the different types of transports, other markers, and then cards and how to read those. Then on page 8, we get to the setup and calendar, and this is where the rules proper start. Everything else prior to that is supporting text to get you understanding what all the pieces are and how they work. Now we get into the game itself. Setup and calendar, marking time, and then you get into the levy, because remember, it's levy and campaign. The levy phase is where you're going to plan for your upcoming campaign, and then you're going to carry it out during the campaign phase. Breaks down all of the steps for levying lords to muster, levy to muster ready vassal, levy transports, call to arms. And then you get into your campaign phase here, and this is where you select your cards for your plan, you arrange your stacks, you have your lieutenants here, how you use your commands, your pass card, march. Then you get into your battle, which we already looked at the battle card, and then explains the battle procedure here. Siege, storm, and sally. Other commands that you can do like forage, ravage, sail, feed, pay, disband, and then you end your campaign, and then you determine victory here on the last page. And then you start off with scenarios on page 20. Those go for a couple of pages, the different scenarios that are available to you. And on the back of the book is the key terms and index. Now we'll take a look at the background book, which is double the size of the rule book. It is 48 pages. Inside you're going to get play hints, solitaire Nevsky, examples of play with about 15 pages of examples so you can understand the different segments of the game, campaign synopsis, lord histories, and then you have the Teutons and Russians and their allies, the timeline, the arts of war over here, which is goes back to the arts of war cards, and then design notes, selected sources, and credits. So we'll just kind of skim through this book real quick. This looks like it's really just more to get you going in the game, as well as a lot of background information. For those of us like me, I'm very ignorant to this era, so this is going to be a great resource to play the game, kind of get the imagination ignited, and then support it with some historical information. Those are all of your examples of play. Then you get into your campaign synopsis, and then the histories of all the lords you're going to have throughout the game, the timeline, how everything played out, I guess, in the real world. Then again, we go on to the rest of the lords. Then we get into the arts of war. Those are the cards and the actual events that are depicted on the cards. Then you have the different capabilities for the Russians. That was the Teutons first. Then you get into the design notes, and then the selected sources here at the back of the book. And that is a look at everything you get inside of Nevsky, Teutons and Rus in Collision, 1240 to 1242. Again, designed by Volko Runke and published by GMT Games. This is the first in the new Levian campaign series. If you're a medieval fan, if you're a fan of Volko Runke's designs, you're going to want to check this out. If you're at all curious about the medieval period and how they waged warfare, this would be something that might interest you as well. Like I said, I'm fairly ignorant to this time frame. I'm also not a big fan of ancients, but the idea behind this game has me interested, and that's why I picked up a copy of it. I like the whole idea of you're not just going out there and fighting, you're having to kind of manage the home front and recruit the lords to bring them into the fold, get them to put troops in the field so that way you can campaign. Otherwise, you're not going to be able to do it. We're used to, as wargamers, most of the time, having your order of battle, looking for your reinforcements only, and dealing with just the straight up fighting, which is what I prefer. But I also kind of like switching things out a little bit, wearing a different hat, and also looking at the political aspect of it, which is what I think this is going to give a nice representation of knowing Volko's designs. He's a really thoughtful designer, and I really am curious to see how he's played this one out. And it seems like this is a era that seems really near and dear to his heart just by talking to him. So I'm really excited to see what he's bringing with this new series. Well, I hope that helps you guys out if you've been curious about this one. If you have any comments or questions, post them down below. Thanks for tuning in, guys. See you next time.